because we've already seen it in Vashj'ir. So here's some concept art. The concept art here, obviously, it's going to feel similar to what we're doing with Throne of the Tides because it's built by the same race. So we want these two things to feel tied together. It's almost the same thing like we do with Winged Dungeons, where we want them to feel like they're from the same place, but you're going to get a very different experience in either one. It's another piece of concept art. And to close out today, we have a new feature we haven't talked with anyone about. This is a feature we tried desperately to get in for Cataclysm, but it turned out that there was a number of things we wanted to do with this feature to actually bump it up and bring it up to a level where we just felt like it would be awesome. So we decided to hold it, and it's something that we're working on for a future patch. And we wanted to give you guys a sneak peek at what it means and what it is. And for us, it's the idea of doing basically enhanced dungeon maps. So everyone noticed and obviously saw that we put in 2D maps in Northrend for all of the dungeons. So when you go into a dungeon, instead of just having to look at your mini map and seeing that small portion of the dungeon you're on, we did full 2D maps like you would see for any zone in World of Warcraft. The response for that was very strong. A lot of players really loved that concept. They liked seeing where they were. And for Cataclysm, we've actually gone back and we've done 2D maps for every single dungeon in the game. So that's our first step, and we thought that was great. Now players aren't going to get lost. It's going to feel like they're knowing where they're going. But as anything at Blizzard, we really didn't think that was enough. So the next thing we want to do is get detailed boss information on these maps. So when you're in a dungeon, you come up to a boss, you want to know what loot is this boss going to drop. I'm going to be able to see that. You want to know, maybe a small paragraph about where this boss came from, what he's doing, what's his deal, why is he down here standing in this room. Give you a little bit of background on the story. Thirdly, we also want you to know the abilities. As you've seen, in Northrend, we were able to actually link abilities through the chat. So when you're in a raid fight and an ability happens, it shows up in your chat and you can actually click it and get a detailed tooltip on what that ability was and what it did. Have the ability to see these things before they actually go into the fight. Because if you look at any fight now in the game, the only way to really find out if something, what it does, is to die. You have to basically pull the boss and figure out, oh, well, he's doing this meteor that we've got to get out of the way, or he's doing a pulsing AE and it's killing us. And there's no way to find that stuff out. So by having those abilities be available for you to see when you come up before you pull the boss, you really think it'll give a lot of players a lot more insight into what they're getting into. We're not going to tell you exactly how the boss works, by no means. We still want the gameplay to be there, but we definitely want you to have an idea of what you're getting into. So many people right now end up alt-tabbing out of WoW and going to a site, Wowhead or any of these sites, to try to get information. And that's great. We think that sites like that are awesome for the game. They really help. But we also would like people to be able to get some of that information inside of WoW and not have to actually go outside to do that. And so we really think this is going to be a huge feature for the game. To go along with this, we're going to have 3D portraits of the bosses. So when you see them, you'll be able to see an actually 3D animated, full-on model of the boss. Get a chance to see what he looks like. It's just a cool feature that helps you maybe get a better vibe on who the guy is and what he's doing. It works really well with the idea that we're going to show lore on the boss. And finally, this feature will work in both dungeons and raids. We don't want to leave anyone out, so you'll be able to see all this kind of information for both sides. And to close out today, that's all the information we have for what we're planning on. Give you a little bit of a sneak peek of Cataclysm and stuff we're planning for the patches. But we wanted to leave you guys with a really awesome video we got from our DVD production team of what you can expect in the raids that are coming with shipping Cataclysm here in just a few weeks. Just imagine that this sounds awesome.
Yeah, so this is
Oh,
the
here
first
it
two
comes.
bosses for Blackwing Descent. What you just saw there was the Omnitron Defense Council and Magmaw, the lava worm.
Sweet elevator.
Yeah. There's Maloriak. Chimeron, and then here's Atromedes. It's that blind dragon I was
It's our
talking
first
about.
blind dragon.
Yeah. Another one of the raid zones you'll be playing through, Bastion of Twilight. This is sort of the raid zone that culminates the entire Twilight theme of lore and quests that you've been doing throughout this entire expansion. So you see Cho'Gall in here. Here's a pair of Twilight dragons that end up yelling at each other a whole lot to kill you all. We have a bunch of elementals. We actually have Ascendant Council. There's one of them. You'll be fighting a Ascended of each elemental type in the fight.
Here's Cho'Gall.
Just chilling on the throne.
Hanging out with his beak.
With a huge hammer.
Throne of the Four Winds is, you could look at it similar to things that we've done in the past where it's a single boss. We've got two bosses here rather than one, but it's definitely more of a smaller raid zone. But the art here, we just think is mind-bogglingly awesome. The look and style.
Yes, this is the raid I was talking about where you're actually fighting 3 Jin all simultaneously, but during the fight, members of the raid will actually have to flip back and forth between the different towers using these, they'll basically jump off and get carried by the winds back and forth between them. So it ends up being a really, really interesting fight, and a lot of planning has to go into it for you guys to win successfully. All right.
Okay, so that's what we have. So I think we've got some time for Q&A.
Hello. Thank you very much for all the work that you do. I have one question about LFG system looting. Is there any plans to make a more stringent looting system to prevent ninja looting or people just running through and grabbing stuff when lower geared players may need it?
There's a couple things you're going to see in Cataclysm that have changed. Have you played in the beta at all? No? Yeah, you're definitely going to see some changes there from what we have in Shipping WoW now. We're a little bit more stringent about which classes are able to roll on which items, specifically looking at, can they wear this piece? Is it good for their spec? You're going to see some advancements there. As far as ninja looting and those concepts, we're hoping that what you're going to see there is a way that, by the way that you can roll individually only on that item, if that guy isn't able to wear it, hopefully he shouldn't be able to roll on it, which would keep him away from being able to take that item. It's definitely an area that we've known that we've had to work on, so it's something that we looked at for Cataclysm, so you'll definitely see improvements there.
Yeah, with 10 and 25 man raids having the same loot now, what are you thinking about as far as getting them to the same difficulty level? Because right now with 10 mans, you just have less people, so you have more room to move around and everything, and I'm just wondering what you think about balancing there.
Sure. Tuning both 10 and 25 to be the same difficulties, actually, it's a real tough challenge for us. That's one of the reasons we're in beta now. One of our first beta encounters, or first couple of beta encounters, we had Omnitron that was much more difficult in 10, and then we had Halphus that was much more difficult in 25. We think we can make difficult encounters for both 10 and 25. We absolutely have the tools, the mechanics. It's just a matter of really sort of delving down and seeing what are the different mechanics classes have to play with. In Cataclysm, a lot has changed, so we're having to adapt to that. But we absolutely totally think that we'll be able to make them roughly the same difficulty. There'll be some bumps and bruises along the way. Certainly, I'm sure people will think that, oh, this one's easier in 10 and this one's easier in 25. But I think overall, we'll definitely get to the point where overall it'll be the same difficulty.
I think the point we're trying to make is that we know that that's an extremely high priority, and so we're watching it very closely because we know that that's a key to making the flexible raid lock system work. So it's something we're going to be working extremely hard on to make sure that we get them as close as we can.
Yeah.
Hi, my question's mainly about tuning and the fact that it's kind of weird that you have 7 or 8 bosses on Heroic 25 that are easier than, say, normal Lich King on 25. And also, what have you learned forward going, you know, those 7 or 8 bosses that are easier, there's a huge difficulty jump between those 7 or 8, then going to Death Whisper, then going to Putricide Syndragosa, and then the massive difficulty jump going to Lich King. And I'm not saying hard is bad, it's good, keep it up, but what have you learned going forward?
Okay, yeah. So Lich King was sort of a special encounter for us. I mean, it's Wrath of the Lich Kings. We want to make sure that whenever you went up there, it was a super epic fight, that it carried with it a bit of difficulty. Yeah, it meant that some of the heroic encounters ended up being less difficult than him, but we were perfectly willing to deal with that. And as far as Death Whisper being more difficult than like Marrowgar or other ones, there's always going to be a little bit of variation and difficulty. Like I said, we try to make it a nice like line where the further you get into a dungeon, the harder it gets. But reality